Hey guys, back with another video, an impressions video, and just like a kind of a discussion video. First, I'll start off with the discussion. So what I've decided to do is, based on this game I just finished, um, I'm going to be doing kind of like a Final Fantasy marathon of sorts. So basically, this year, out the entire year, whenever I'm not playing a new release, I am going to play a Final Fantasy game. Try to finish a Final Fantasy game. I decided to do this to get through the series, to finally play all of the games, uh, and I don't know, I've just been in a Final Fantasy mood lately, and I kind of wanted to create a goal for myself to have all the games finished. Now, as to which ones, I am going to focus on the mainline games. So Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, at least from the ones I haven't beaten yet. 1, 2, 3, 8, 10, 12, 10, 2, Tactics. Maybe Lightning Returns, and then if I have enough time, I might go for like Crisis Core, Final Fantasy IV: The After Years. Um, is that it? Maybe Final Fantasy Tactics A2, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. There's probably some I'm missing, but mainly the numbered games. So yeah, basically, if I'm not playing a new release, expect a lot of impressions videos on Final Fantasy games this year. Hopefully, I can get through at least the ones I want to get through. I'm not sure. Because in terms of new releases, there's a lot coming out in February, March, a couple in April. Although after that, I'm not so sure, but there might be some new releases announced to come out after April or so. But yeah, uh, gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be fun going through all these Final Fantasy games. Um, but let's talk about Final Fantasy IV, which is the one I just finished. And there's a lot of versions of this game. Uh, I was talking to Mr. RPG Crazy. He says the DS version is probably the best one to play because it's like the probably the most remade of the games. He said there's a lot more characterization of the characters. There's a lot more background info. There's a lot more lore and things like that. I did own the DS version at one point. I played it for like 2 or 3 hours, and I don't know. I found that game to be ridiculously difficult. Like so difficult, I couldn't even play it basically. Like I was just like it was very frustrating. I couldn't make much progress. And according to Mr. RPG Crazy, it gets even harder, and by the end of the game, it gets ridiculous. So I decided to trade that game in. I traded that game in a while ago, but I still want to play Final Fantasy IV, so I was looking at the different versions, and I decided to go with the complete collection on the PSP. I played it on the Vita, which I guess is similar to the GBA version, I think, which is, I think, based on the PS1 version, which is based on the Super Nintendo version. Like, there's just, it's crazy. The Final Fantasy IV, there's so many different ways to play it, but this one has really beautiful 2D visuals. It looks I mean, it's not a huge step up over the Super Nintendo, but it looks nice. I actually prefer the visuals in this compared to the DS version. I actually find the DS version to be really ugly. Like it's that kind of ugly DS 3D that I really just can't stand. Which I don't really complain about graphics too much, but I don't know if that game Final Fantasy IV was an eyesore to me, and I know the third game take has the same engine on the DS. I don't although I don't know. Like I don't know. Well, Final Fantasy 3 will come back. Will come later. But the complete collection is what I played, and this has Final Fantasy 4, an interlude between this and the After Years, and also has the After Years, which I've heard mixed things on the After Years. I'll definitely play that eventually, but I did just go through the base Final Fantasy 4 game, and I really enjoyed it. It's great. A lot of people consider this their favorite. I know. And there's always that debate whether Final Fantasy 4 or 6 is better in terms of the Super Nintendo ones. Um, I'm actually going to go with 4. I do prefer this over 6. But let's get into the story. It's a pretty simple storyline. It's cliched at certain points. It's basic. It's your basic kind of save the world storyline. But it's really well done, and you have to take into consideration that this game came out a long time ago, and when this game came out, storylines weren't a big thing in video games, and this was ahead of its time in terms of story and characters. So when I look at it that way, I appreciate it more. I mean, obviously, it's not going to compare to like later Final Fantasy games or games of today that have like massive storylines and really complex storylines. But you know, I don't mind a simple storyline every now and then. And the characters I really like in this game. A lot of them have good character development. Not like an insane amount. Of course, apparently the DS version has more of that. But for what story there was here and what characters there were here, I really liked. Cecil's a fantastic character. Actually, probably one of my favorite characters in Final Fantasy so far. Like all the characters are good. I don't think I didn't like any of them. Or I mean, I didn't hate any of them. So yeah, again, there's not really too much to say about the story and characters. I don't want to spoil things, but I do got to say, like the storyline in this is quite a bit darker than I was expecting. There's a lot of shit that goes down in this game that I guess I wasn't expecting, considering how like old this game is. But yeah, I kind of like the darker storyline in this one. Although it's like the first half I think is a bit more dark than like the second half. But yeah, the story I definitely really enjoyed. It's really well paced too. Like I don't know, you just hit plot points really quickly. You know, it doesn't. The game never wears out. Like I don't know, it just doesn't slow down really and get bogged down in fillers kind of stuff. Visuals, like I said before, it's you know this beautiful 2D artwork. Especially if you enjoy that kind of that looked. From what I've seen, it doesn't look actually all that much better than like the GBA version. Which I mean, I guess for a PSP remake of sorts, they maybe could have done better, but I don't know. I think it's pleasing to the eye. There's some really cool animations in battle. Soundtrack. I said in my Final Fantasy 9 video that Nobuo Uematsu said FF9 had his favorite soundtrack. People corrected me on that. He apparently in interviews he said that this is his favorite soundtrack, and I like the soundtrack. It's really good. I don't know, but I don't know. It didn't really blow me away or anything. Like there was a lot of good tracks. I mean, in fact, there aren't any bad ones, but I don't know. Something about the soundtrack didn't quite gel with me as much as FF9 or FF7. Or even Final Fantasy VI, actually. But the music is still great. It's definitely good. I can understand why people really love the soundtrack in this game too. Gameplay wise, you know, it's your tried and true old school Final Fantasy. The combat system is really fast though in this, which is a nice change of pace from Final Fantasy IX, which was slow. This one it moves very quickly, especially when you turn on the auto battle. It just goes blazing fast. You know, if you've played one of these older Final Fantasy games, you know what to expect. You know, each character is different from the next. They have their own different class, which I really like, and their own different abilities. I mean, you know, it's your standard turn-based system where you know the action, the ATB bar, you know, is going up and you wait and then you can attack and I don't know. It's again, there's not much really to say about the battle system. It's fun. It's fun kind of working out your own strategies, especially for the bosses that quite a few bosses in this game, you can't just like brute force your way through them. You got to actually do some thinking and figure out certain strategies to beat them. Although that can be frustrating in some aspects because those kind of bosses, like puzzle bosses, I like to call them, usually once you know the solution, it's just repeating the same thing over and over again, which that can get a bit old. I want to talk about well, other than that, I mean, the game, you're just basically progressing from town to dungeon, town to dungeon. You've got your classic world map. You've got your airship. It's all standard classic stuff, which I really like. There was one thing that was kind of annoying. There's no, at least maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was. At least I didn't get one. Like a map for the world map. Like I found if I needed to get to a certain place, I had to like wander around aimlessly in my airship until I found the place I needed to be at because it kind of like the map kind of scrolls, kind of repeats. But if you don't have a map, which I didn't, it's really hard to actually find where you're supposed to go at times. And then at other times in this game, there's like lack of direction, which again can be kind of frustrating. But I mean, I'm starting to not be as annoyed by this. This happened to me in Final Fantasy VI as well. It's something to expect with these old RPGs that, you know, they're going to lack in direction. They're not going to explicitly tell you where you're supposed to be going at times. So I did have to use a walkthrough a few times to figure out where I was supposed to be going. Um, Challenge-wise, this, out of all the Final Fantasy games I've played, this to me has the best difficulty curve. Now, I said the DS version was really hard, and the complete collection, this version of the game, starts out extremely easy, and I was a bit worried for a sec, because I was thinking this game was going to stay super easy like for the entire game, because the beginning of this game, this version, is ridiculously easy. You can just auto-battle through everything, like it takes no strategy whatsoever. Luckily, though, it slowly ramps up, it gets more challenging, and by the end, this game gets very tough. Like, the end game of this game is very challenging. And I got to the final boss, and it turns out I was super underleveled. All my guys were like like early 50s, and the final boss has a big bang attack, and it destroyed my entire party basically. Like it completely wiped out my party, and the final boss uses this attack like fairly regularly. So I had to grind to like mid 60s so I would have enough health to withstand this big bang attack. So that is like the one part of this game that I kind of like I got pretty annoyed by. You are gonna have to grind playing this game, no matter what version you play. It's just grinding is, like I was fighting every battle up until that point. Like I wasn't running away from battles or anything. It's just for some reason I don't know. It's hard. It's very hard to be like mid 60s or 60s. At least I guess for me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I just was playing the wrong way or something. But I don't know. I was very underleveled by the time I reached the final boss. And it took 20 hours to reach the final boss, and I spent like 5 hours grinding. So it's a 25-ish hour game, which is just right. I love the length of this game too. Like I was saying before, it's the plot is very well paced, and the game is in general. I mean, it's just it's just that perfect right amount of length. So yeah, the grinding. I really wish I didn't have to grind, and if those that hate grinding will probably get annoyed at the end game of this, but it's appropriately challenging. Like it feels really epic. There's no save point before the final boss either, so you have to go through like a bunch of enemies and do a bunch of walking every time you want to try to fight the final boss again. Which that was kind of frustrating for me as well. But yeah, it's like all the other Final Fantasy games I've played have had such random difficulty curves. Well, it'd be like hard, all of a sudden it's easy, then it's hard, then it's easy. And it just but this is the first one where it starts off extremely easy, and then by the end it's very difficult. So I actually like that. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Oh, optional content. There's not too much of it. I actually did most of it in this, which I usually never do with RPGs. But again, because this game was was on the shorter side. I felt compelled to do all the side quests. I got all the summons. I got Excalibur. I did some little side questy type things. The only thing I didn't do was that Cave of Trials. I know you get some like weapons, I think, going through that with different characters. I don't know. I didn't bother with that. But maybe I was missing some other side quests stuff. Although I looked online, there didn't seem to be all that much side content once you kind of reached the end game. But the fact that I was compelled to do it, I think says something about the quality of this game, where the rest of the Final Fantasy games, I didn't feel like doing any of the optional content. Well, Final Fantasy VI, I almost kind of had to, because that game, again, Final Fantasy VI, I was kind of underleveled at the end, and then I was only sticking to certain characters, and I had to level up all my weak characters. Oh, that sucked. But anyways, yeah, what else? I mean, that's about it. I mean, it's, your tried and true basic old school Final Fantasy game, and it's it's something that I kind of miss, and it's good to go back to this style of game. I like how like Bravely Default, for instance, takes a lot of elements of like the old school Final Fantasies like this. So yeah, I do plan to play the DS version at some point again. I'm gonna try again, and now that I understand how this game works, maybe I can get better. There's a lot of like gameplay systems added in the DS version as well. Like it is like a full proper remake, whereas this is just like different art, and I don't know. It's very similar from what I understand to like the GBA version. So it's not as much of a remake as as that DS version is. But I'm sure there's stuff I'm missing. But I just wanted to give my impressions on this game. Yeah, I definitely really enjoyed it. Not my favorite in the series. I think from what I've played, I think I prefer 7. 9 for sure. And 6, I'm kind of no, I know I prefer 4 over 6. So yeah, I do like this over 6, and of course 13 and 13 too. Oh wow, I haven't actually played as many Final Fantasy games as I thought I have, but that's what this marathon of sorts is for. But anyways, that's it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.